Our headlines this Monday afternoon, August 21st here in Seoul. President Yoon lauded the Camp David summit for paving the way for South Korea, the U.S., and Japan to build a powerful security mechanism against a long-time global security issue, North Korea's nuclear threats. The president looked forward to annual summits, joint military drills, and a missile warning system. From today, South Korea and the U.S. have kicked off their annual joint military drills dubbed Ulchi Freedom Shield. This year, civilians will be a part of this training, where officials will reenact actual war scenarios against North Korea. In what seems to be an apparent response to these drills, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited a Navy unit and oversaw a cruise missile test. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida inspected the Fukushima nuclear power plant ahead of the planned release of wastewater. The date of release will be decided soon. Let's start Monday's edition of the Daily Report. We begin as South Korea kicks off its Ulchi exercise, an annual 4-day nationwide military drill to prepare for national emergencies like war. As part of the exercise, President Yoon chaired a cabinet meeting on Monday, calling for the public's active participation. Take a listen to what he had to say.
오늘날의 전쟁은 가짜 뉴스를 활용한 여론전과 심리전, 테러를 동반한 비정규전, 인터넷 공간에서 이루어지는 사이버전, 핵 위협을 병행한 정규전 등 모든 전쟁을 혼합한 양상을 보이고 있습니다. 이에 민관군이 함께 국가 총력전 수행 역량을 향상시키는 노력이 반드시 필요합니다.
For the first time in 6 years, civilians will be a part of this military drill. Yoon asked people to pay attention to the 3 points in particular when defending themselves against potential attacks from North Korea. Above all, he said it's crucial to thoroughly dismantle Pyongyang's attempts at fake news, disguised peace offensives, and provocative propaganda. Second, he said we need to better protect critical national infrastructure, which will probably be targeted first. Lastly, he said this is the first year for the exercise to include a response to a nuclear attack. President Yoon emphasized the importance of alerting the public in case of a nuclear attack, as well as swiftly providing medical help. Also in tandem with the civil defense exercise, this year's Ulchi Freedom Shield features expanded field training and advanced war scenarios reflecting evolving North Korean threats and the war in Ukraine. Lee Dae-yeon has this report.
South Korea and the U.S. begin their Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise on Monday. The joint combined and interagency exercise is an 11-day event which will be rolled out in 2 sessions. It aims to strengthen the Seoul-Washington combined defense posture in the case of any possible emergency situation, including provocations by North Korea.
South Korea will inspect any necessary defense posture and support strengthened government exercises to enhance national-level response capabilities.
Now, the all-out war scenario has been reorganized for this year's military drills. This time it will reflect diverse threats within the security environment from lessons learned from recent wars and conflicts, including Pyongyang's new nuclear and missile threats and the war in Ukraine, as well as fake news that could be distributed by North Korea. A number of complementary large-scale combined training events will also be rolled out during Ulchi Freedom Shield. About 30 such events will take place, more than double that of last year. The U.S. Forces Korea says the U.S. Space Force will also take part for the first time.
You have the space component, you have the land component, air, sea, cyber, and the cognitive domains. How do you take all of those resources that commanders have at their fingertips and be able to utilize those effectively?
Besides South Korea and the U.S., United Nations member states, including Canada, France, and the U.K., are also set to participate. Some experts say that U.S. strategic assets such as the B-1B bomber may also make an appearance. Military authorities are monitoring for possible provocations by North Korea during the drills. Lee Dae-yeon, Arirang News.
In what seems to be a response to the Seoul-Washington joint military drills, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un inspected a Navy unit and observed a cruise missile test. Pyongyang also claimed to have fired strategic cruise missiles, but the South Korean military said that seems to be a bit of an overstatement. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji has more.
As military forces from South Korea and the U.S. kicked off their annual summertime drills on Monday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw the test firing of strategic cruise missiles from a Navy ship. The North state-run media said Monday that the regime's leader visited a Navy fleet stationed on the East Coast to inspect the test from aboard a warship. The news outlet added that the launch was aimed at carrying out an attack mission in actual war and said the missile precisely hit its target. This comes only 3 days after the leaders of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan agreed to strengthen security ties at a Trilateral summit. But the North is yet to respond to the recent summit, with experts saying Kim's move appears to be a show of force against the combined military exercise.
The launch was conducted right after the Trilateral summit between South Korea, the US and Japan, and right before the Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise, so it's probably a strong warning that it will respond sternly against the military drills.
The expert also said the North will likely release a comprehensive review after looking at how China and Russia are responding to the summit, as well as the public opinion in South Korea, the US, and Japan. Meanwhile, South Korea's military said parts of North Korea's claim to have fired strategic cruise missiles are not true and appear to have been exaggerated. It added that Seoul and Washington detected signs of the test in advance and had been monitoring the situation in real time. It said the military plans to thoroughly conduct the joint drills under a strong combined defense posture while maintaining capabilities strong enough to respond to any provocation from the North. An official from Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff told reporters that it was a ship-to-ship missile, not a strategic cruise missile, noting that it's impossible to launch that kind of cruise missile from such a small ship. The official also added that the missile did not hit its target. 배은지, Arirang News.
The leaders of South Korea, the United States, and Japan decided at the Camp David summit on Friday to hold routine meetings and institutionalize trilateral cooperation from now on. But given that it was a political agreement, how far will it go and will it last? Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young finds out.
South Korea, the United States, and Japan will expand their cooperation beyond Northeast Asia to become a regional force in the Indo-Pacific. That's according to President Yoon, who chaired a cabinet meeting on Monday following his trilateral summit with President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida at Camp David. With their pledges of regular annual summits, joint military drills and a missile warning system, Yoon said the trio will become a powerful security mechanism against North Korea's nuclear threats and also work with the AUKUS Security Pact and the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue to uphold international law and order in regional waters. Beyond military issues, the president said the realm of cooperation will expand beyond traditional security concerns.
한반도 영내 공조에 머물렀던 한미일 협력은 인도 태평양 지역 전반의 자유, 평화, 번영을 구축하는 데 기여하는 범지역 협의체로 진화할 것입니다. 협력 분야도 안보뿐만 아니라 사이버, 경제, 첨단 기술, 개발 협력, 보건, 여성, 인적 교류를 망라한 포괄적 협력체를 지향하게 될 것입니다.
In particular, he noted that joint efforts to develop critical technologies, ethical standards of AI, and supply chain cooperation would benefit all three countries, trickling down to the welfare of everyday people.
한미일 3국의 경제 협력과 인적 교류 증진은 대한민국의 미래 성장 동력 확보와 양질의 고소득 일자리 창출에 크게 기여할 것입니다.
While executive leadership has been crucial, experts say all three democracies face political risks in continuing the trilateral arrangement, given long-standing historical disputes between Seoul and Tokyo and the possible return of former President Donald Trump, who was wary of such alliances. Thus, broader institutionalization is needed to solidify and amplify cooperation moving forward.
But there's obviously an important security dimension to this partnership. There's an important economic and trade dimension to this partnership. There's a diplomatic dimension to this partnership. There are so many areas that are going to provide fodder, if you will, for cooperation, coordination among the three countries here, that I think that the legislatures in all three countries, in my view, have a stake, have an interest in participating in this emerging partnership, and I hope they will.
The next standalone Trilateral summit could take place in Seoul, as Yoon has suggested a meeting in Korea, having met his counterparts in Hiroshima, Japan, and at Camp David this year. 오수영, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida visited the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant on Sunday, where treated wastewater will soon be released. Local media outlets hinted that the exact release date is imminent. Lee Seung-jae with the details.
Ahead of Japan's planned release of the wastewater from the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, the country's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on Sunday made a visit to the site to make sure everything is in check.
I would like to emphasize that this operation requires flawless handling to be sustained over the long term throughout the decommissioning process.
On the same day, Japan's Kyodo News reported that the process of releasing wastewater into the ocean will begin either in late August or early September. And according to Kishida, he will hold talks with related ministers later this week to finalize a date.
Concerning the timing of the release of Alps treated water into the sea, the full cabinet will decide based on the status of safety works and countermeasures against rumors, and I will refrain from giving a specific timeline at this point.
During his visit to the U.S. for the Trilateral summit with the leaders of South Korea and the U.S., Kishida told reporters that Tokyo is in the final stage of preparations to begin releasing the wastewater. According to a South Korean presidential office official, the topic of wastewater was not mentioned during the Trilateral summit at Camp David. However, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol said the potential safety impact of the planned release makes it the highest priority for all three countries and the international community. Once the release begins, the process is expected to take up to 30 years. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Moving to China, Beijing has cut one of its main benchmark lending rates amid worsening economic woes. The People's Bank of China on Monday lowered its one-year loan prime rate, the peg for most household and corporate loans in the country, by 10 basis points to 3.45%. This was the second time this year that the central bank has cut the rate. It lowered the rate in June and froze it in July. Meanwhile, the five-year rate, the peg for most mortgages, was left unchanged at 4.2%. A gloomy business sentiment has returned in Korea for September amid continuing economic uncertainty. According to the Federation of Korean Industries on Monday, the business sentiment index for next month stands at 96.9, indicating a negative outlook for both manufacturing and non-manufacturing firms. It also cited a slowdown in China's economic growth, high exchange rates, and oil prices as among the reasons, and said the government should implement regulations and labor reforms to boost exports. The BSI measures business sentiment for market conditions with a number below 100, meaning pessimists outnumber optimists. The figure has remained below 100 in South Korea for 18 consecutive months. Shifting gears to a long complaint among farmers. Having to bend down and squat to harvest crops, many suffer with so-called farmer syndrome. Technology seems to be working as a good solution, though. Yoon tells us more.
This farmer grows sesame leaves on Jeju Island. Having done so for decades, the work has been breaking down his body and health by what's being called farmer syndrome.
I have to work squatting all day, and once the plant grows, I have to bend over, so it's a lot of strain on my back.
This is a lettuce cultivating house in Jeju. All the lettuce here is very green, meaning good commercial value. That's made possible because IT technology is used instead of humans to control the temperature as well as the supply of water and nutrients. What's also unique is that the lettuce is grown on cultivation plates that are elevated 80 centimeters from the ground, which not only reduces labor, but also the strain on farmers' backs and knees. So once a batch of lettuce is harvested, it is also easier to plant new seedlings, making it easier to increase production and hence income. This latest system makes it very suitable for farming areas that suffer from an aged population and shortage of labor.
We plan to apply the system to other produce like strawberries and distribute it not only around Jeju Island but also to the mainland. It'll help with the shortage of workers and aging farmers.
The obstacle that stands in the way is the initial installation costs.
The installation fee is burdensome for us farmers. So when this system is introduced, I think there needs to be support and assistance from public institutions.
If the problem of initial installation costs can be resolved, this new smart farm technology is expected to help rural areas suffering from an aging population as well as labor shortages. 이은진, Arirang News.
Another way to help farmers is by cultivating watermelons in the air instead of on the ground. How does this help farmers, you ask? Chung Eun-ju with the answer.
Watermelon is one of the most popular summer fruits. Watermelons are usually grown on the ground using the conventional horizontal farming method. This means farmers have to bend down, squat, and strain their backs throughout the process, making it a physically demanding task. This watermelon farm, however, is entirely different. Watermelons ripen on a suspended net in the air. This is a patented vertical watermelon cultivation device. Once the seeds are planted, the rest of the cultivation process can be accomplished while standing. With the vertical cultivation method, the need for manual labor is significantly decreased as the working position is adjusted to match waste levels. The system also allows farmers to plant 2 rows of watermelon instead of just 1, resulting in a 1.8-fold yield increase. This vertical cultivation technique is also used to grow a type of premium fruit known as the hamiga or hami melon.
The RDA provides funding and supports the research and development of technologies that can reduce labour and increase productivity on site as the ageing rural population suffers from a labour shortage.
Around 3 years ago, the Rural Development Administration developed and promoted a similar vertical cultivation system for watermelons, fixing plastic nets on the roofs of greenhouses to support the stems and allowing the melons to grow vertically. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
We've already seen half of the year 2023 go by. A lot has happened on the cultural front in the past 8 months. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin fills us in on what to expect for the remainder of the year.
With just a third of 2023 left, there is still a lot to be excited about in the world of culture, especially when it comes to performing arts. Clearly, there has been a lot to be excited about as well. The total ticket sales for the performing arts scene in Korea during the first half of this year grew over 40% from last year. The number of shows increased by 24%. Taking the lead are musicals, making up nearly half of the ticket sales and having the highest number of tickets sold. Korean audiences will be able to enjoy 3 of the big 4 musicals this year. Cats concluded its Korean tour in June, while The Phantom of the Opera, returning after a 13-year hiatus, moved to Seoul last month after a 3-month-long run in Busan. Marking the 10th anniversary of its Korean production, Les Miserables will make its return to Korean theater in October. Classical music commands the spotlight as well, which offered the most number of shows during the first half of the year. More than 10 overseas orchestras are scheduled to perform in Korea between October and November. They include the London Philharmonic, Vienna Philharmonic, Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, Czech Philharmonic, and the Oslo Philharmonic. World-renowned pianist Cho Sung-jin will grace the stage alongside the Berlin Philharmonic and the Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra. Pianist Im Yoon-chan, winner of last year's Van Cliburn International Piano Competition, will play with the Munich Philharmonic. The world of pop music is buzzing with anticipation too, with big names following in the footsteps of Harry Styles and Bruno Mars. Singer-songwriters Charlie Puth and Sam Smith are set to perform in Korea as part of their Asia tours. And don't forget the big and small screens. Although summer's big film releases have wrapped up, it's too early to be disappointed. At least that's what one film critic told us.
2 Korean films screened at this year's Cannes International Film Festival, Cobweb and Sleep, are gearing up for their premieres. There's also Dr. John and Lost Talisman starring Kang Dong-won. On the streaming front, Netflix Sweet Home will be rolling out its 2nd season in the fall.
So even as the year winds down, the cultural scene will stay vibrant, offering plenty of entertainment. 송유진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In northern Mexico, at least one person has been killed amid flooding caused by the arrival of Tropical Storm Hillary. The storm made landfall on Sunday and is moving toward the southwest United States, where preparations are being made for potentially catastrophic flooding. The U.S. state of California is already seeing increasing levels of wind and rain, and a flash flood warning has been issued to over 9 million people in downtown Los Angeles, as rainfall has surpassed 2 inches in some areas. The National Weather Service predicts the storm's effects will be felt until Monday, with more than a year's worth of rain potentially falling in parts of California, Arizona, and Nevada. Power outages caused by strong winds are also expected. A state of emergency has already been declared in California and Nevada to support hurricane response and recovery efforts. Denmark and the Netherlands officially announced on Sunday that they will provide Ukraine with F-16 fighter jets in a move set to bolster the war-torn nation's air defenses. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen promised 19 jets to be given periodically until 2025. Dutch PM Mark Rutte, meanwhile, did not provide a figure or timeframe, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said 42 fighter jets would be provided. The announcement comes after the U.S. on Friday wrote a letter to Denmark and the Netherlands to express Washington's support for both the transfer of F-16s and for the training of Ukrainian pilots. The first jets will be delivered after Ukrainian pilots receive at least 6 months of training. Russia's first lunar lander in nearly 50 years has smashed into the surface of the moon. Russian space agency Roscosmos said on Sunday that the unmanned Luna 25 spacecraft crashed after entering a pre-landing orbit, where it spun out of control. They said they lost contact with it on Saturday. Roscosmos had hoped to be the first in a race with India to land on the moon's south pole on Monday to begin a search for water, an essential component to support potential human bases there. Barring any issues, India's Chandrayaan-3 craft will touch down on the lunar surface on August 23rd. And finally, Spain have won their first ever Women's World Cup, beating England 1-0 in the final. La Roja's captain Olga Carmona scored the only goal of Sunday's match in Sydney, putting the ball past England's goalkeeper in the first half. Spain almost doubled their lead in the second half after being given a penalty kick for handball, but the spot kick was saved. Spain are the 5th country to have won the trophy in the tournament's 32-year history. Meanwhile, Sweden took home bronze in Brisbane on Saturday, beating World Cup co-hosts Australia 2-0. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Late summer heat is showing no sign of easing up. Heat wave alerts were expanded to more parts of the country over the weekend, and feels like temperatures are a couple of degrees higher due to that high humidity. And there will be passing rain of 5 to 60 millimeters during the day today. Central inland areas could see 60 millimeters an hour of heavy downpours. In fact, Seoul could see rain pounding down in the late afternoon right before the evening commute. But the regions that are free from passing rain like Daegu and Busan will be under sunny skies with sweltering highs this afternoon. Please keep an umbrella handy this week as we're expecting frequent showers with a drop in highs, and they should bring more bearable morning and evening temperatures next week. Rain will start tomorrow in western parts of the country and gradually spreading nationwide by Friday. Central regions will be soaked with heavy rainfall this week, so please keep that in mind. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for you on today's edition of the Daily Report. We'll be returning shortly with a panel session on the Trilateral partnership between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. As for the Daily Report, we hope to see you again at this hour tomorrow.